Hi, everyone. I thought I would do another reflection on a reading. This one is on a reading from Hebrews chapter 4, verses 15 and 16. For we do not have a priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but we have one who in every respect has been tested as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore approach the throne of grace with boldness, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. It's July 21st, 2020, and I must say it's been a difficult couple of weeks, on top of a difficult 4 months. I think I finally reached the limit of my stress level about a week ago, as some of you know. I could almost feel my brain start to go off the rails, especially as I listened to the political news of the day and I found another thing to ignite my anger and my sadness about the state of our nation right now. This feeling of burning anger has been a regular occurrence since President Trump ordered the plaza in front of the White House to be cleared of peaceful protesters using aggression so that he could pose awkwardly in front of a church that he did not attend, holding a Bible that was not his, and I don't think has ever read. For a moment, I wondered if he was actually the Antichrist, which is not something I've ever thought about a person before. That was the first crack in my train track, so to speak, which in my case meant finally breaking my silence with regards to political talk. I'm usually a fairly calm person, at least externally, and I've never been overtly political, but that politicized me. And yet it was not the final crack. It's been almost a daily occurrence since then. This is on top of a year that already has biblical qualities about it. I was reminded in this instance of the Book of Kings, where one bad king after another continually does what is evil in the sight of God. The Bible seems terribly relevant to me these days, I must say. And all this on top of the usual summer doldrums. The heat and rising humidity oppress me so much that I don't want to go outside at all unless I absolutely have to, even if there wasn't a pandemic going on. And so occasional bouts of boredom kick in so that I don't know what to do with myself before school officially starts back up. Clearly, watching or reading the news is not a good option. So how can I get through these very trying times with my psyche intact? In my devotional reading for that day, a week ago, I read, "Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." This is from Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Listening to this advice, I made the commitment to avoid the news for a while and to focus my mind on learning new things. I read a good book. I watched some educational and inspiring television. And I learned how to make something from scratch. All of these things help put my mind and my emotions back on the right track. And I was thinking about the show Alone. I had recently binge watched Netflix's Alone, season 6. Talk about living in difficult circumstances. 10 individuals are set in a wilderness area. This time it was the Arctic in the middle of Canada. And they have to survive on their own as long as possible. They are all trained wilderness experts who are allowed to bring 10 tools plus some clothes. They have to film themselves on top of all this, top of basic survival. And they each have a walkie-talkie that connects them to the outside world where they can tap out when they've reached the end of their endurance. Weekly medical checks also determine their ability to stay. The last one there wins $500,000. This season's show, there were 7 men and 3 women to start. and they were all very impressive. I know I could not survive on my own in the wilderness, nor would I want to. And yet the idea of doing so fascinates me. How do they do it? Besides meeting their extensive physical needs, using the basic tools they've got, building shelters out of wood and brush, finding food, which is a constant struggle, and they're almost always nearing starvation, which stretches their body to the limit. They are also stretched to the limit mentally. It's not anger so much, however, that they contend with. It's fear and loneliness, which certainly we can relate to a little bit nowadays, especially having to isolate from those people that we love, care so much about. I remembered that one contestant who was one of the last to leave said something along the lines of, "It's not positive thinking that determines your mental strength. It's emotional consciousness," are the words he used. Being aware of your emotions and being able to process them, that's the key. And those contestants who thought most positively and confidently, if not arrogantly, about themselves and their ability to win the game ended up being the least likely to endure the hardships that came. It seems like the bigger your ego, the less truly self-aware you are, which is very ironic to me. The ones that were most successful in living in the wild took one day at a time, living in their personal here and now. They didn't think about the other competitors. They didn't think about the money too much. They kept their sense of humor. They found ways to keep occupied during the quiet downtimes. The winner, a man very impressive, made a deck of cards out of birch bark. And the runner-up, a woman who was also super impressive, weaved a shawl out of rabbit skins. And they were all very creative and persistent problem solvers, especially those who made it to the end. Imagining myself in their situation, I wondered, what tools would I want to have with me? What tools would help me survive? Well, based on what I observed, I would want a fishing rod, a bow and arrows, a ferro rod for starting fires, an axe and a knife, assuming, of course, that I knew how to use all of these tools, a sleeping bag and a kettle, and some cord and wire also seemed like very useful tools to have. But that's only 9 items. So that leaves one other item. What would I take as my 10th item that would help me survive? I thought about the Bible. It would certainly give me something to read during those quiet downtimes. But then I thought there's really one thing that I would have to have with me that I would absolutely require in order to survive and keep my sanity. A big notebook, the biggest one I could get away with. Provided I could make a writing tool, this one thing would save me. For I know I need to have a way to hear my own thoughts, to journal and reflect on my thinking. Not only does it help me to be self-aware, that essential characteristic of good mental health, but it also helps me to see God's guidance in my life. The two go hand in hand. If I don't take the time to be self-reflective and pay attention to my questions, and writing helps me do this, then I don't notice the answers when they come. I'm oblivious to God's guidance in my life. So I'm grateful that I have this tool in my survival toolbox wherever I am. And I'm grateful to God for his guidance and companionship during the good and bad times. For we do not have a priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but we have one who in every respect has been tested as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore approach the throne of grace with boldness, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Thanks be to God, and may the peace which passes understanding be with you always.